So I want to get at one subject that always comes up in political circles and political fields. It's this place where either side, liberal or conservative, where one person in there, maybe a handful of people here or there, just decide they're gonna start, critiquing the other person's views and their values and all this other stuff. So they go at it and they're like, hey, well, the conservatives, the liberals, they support free speech, but only when it serves their side. Or they what's another good one? What's another good one? Oh, the most recent one lately is, they only support, restricting people's access to restaurants when it serves, against the gay agenda. Oh no, but they don't like it when it's the against Republicans' agenda. And then the Republicans, of course, do the vice versa. Oh, the liberals don't like it when it's against gay couples, but when it's against the Republicans, they're all for it. What hypocrites! And this is what they do each time. They're like, well, what hypocrites? Both sides, they're doing it. The Republicans are just like, oh, well, yeah, Democrats support it when it serves their interests, so they're hypocrites. And then the other side is just like, the Democrats are just like, well, the Republicans only do it when it serves their interests. And they just have this miraculous gotcha moment. It's like but there's nothing there. It's like, wait a second. Let's slow down here. Either one, both of you being hypocrites, which is entirely possible, or two, there might be a little more going on here. So, the first thing to notice in this statement, in this perspective, is they start by saying conservatives, or liberals, think this, and then they do that. So it's already it's a generalization. It's saying, it's not like, Tommy Lauren said this, and then she said that. When you see someone doing a critique of an individual specific person, usually that's pretty good. Usually that's okay, because they have two-sided examples of where one person said one thing and then contradicted themselves on the other side. But that does not always happen. Because then you get that other one where it's conservatives say that they support free speech. But then when a liberal is blocked, or when a liberal is attacked for their speech on YouTube or online or whatever, you don't see the conservatives coming to their aid. It's just very what conservatives? Who specifically are you talking about? You're not talking about anyone specific? Well, what? Every single conservative has the same exact view all the time? No, I mean, it's a political spectrum. You have far-right conservatives, you have evangelical conservatives, you have centrist conservatives, and the same goes on the left. You've got establishment liberals, you've got centrist liberals, I mean, you might say those are the same thing, neoliberals! You got progressive liberals, and you got some weird things all around in between. People change their views depending on various things. You've got libertarian conservatives, sort of blending between the weird Ron Paul kind of thing. You've got people who diverge and differ on religion. Some conservatives only are there for religion. Some conservatives have a mix. Some conservatives are there solely for economics and are liberal on social issues. The same thing goes with the liberal side, too. Some liberals only really care about liberal politics from the social issues. They're like, yeah, my grave, the grave I stand on, whatever that expression is, you know, where I make my stand, or my grave, is this place where, oh, gay rights, that's the only thing I care about. I don't care if people are starving and homeless on the streets. They should be picking themselves up by their bootstraps. But I'm here for the transgendered folk. You know? It's just, it varies all the time. It varies. But when you're making a generalization, I mean, sometimes those generalizations are warranted because these are ideologies. These are, these are groups brought together somewhat by universal belief. Not fully so, but to some degree by certain goalposts or certain flags in the ground where these people take a stand, and that is representative of their party, of their ideology, of their belief system. So there are certain things where you can make generalizations, at least in terms of groups like liberal and Republican, groups that are people join out of choice, not groups that people are like born into, like race or gender or something like that, where a lot of it can be very not idea based, but just the more superficial, more, oh, he's a guy, oh, he's white, oh, he's black, oh, that person's gay. Some people disagree with that, but I'm not going to humor the conservative. Actually, I don't know. I know they do that more. They say with transgenders, they think it's a mental disorder, which, okay, get your studies together. Get some current day studies together and throw it out there and have a serious debate with some people. But it just don't have everyone's, like, most people work backwards for their conclusions. So we know you're starting off as just assholes, most of you. Generalization! I just did it there. But again, I tried my best to be like, oh, well, most of you who stand on this side of the aisle are probably coming. I'm saying yes, there are probably some intellectuals out there who maybe have some background in, like, psychology, who are like, yeah, or like social psychology or whatever, that are just like, yeah, well, I read this, or like probably some old person, I read this study from 1792 where a bunch of bigoted motherfuckers, they wouldn't say bigoted, because is scientists and people who do these studies, are they always objective? No. I think there were some old studies on women, on the psychology of women that had something to do with, like, they literally, like, used, not objective terms, because in science, when you have to sort of write your observations, not all of them come out objective. So they come out with these very subjective sort of descriptors to try and really piece together the results that you're trying to get from this stuff. So it said something along the lines of, like, some really sort of gendered sort of thing of, like, oh, they're like nappy, or they're crazy. Not nappy, they're crazy. They're what was the one? It was this very rude way of saying it, which I don't know if it was back in the day. I don't know. It was something along the lines of crazy, or they're freaking out, or they're just, like, erratic, It's like, well, like, God knows what the fucking person who was studying that was doing to make people to trigger sort of emotional reactions. God knows how they've sort of viewed these emotions. It's like you get that old school philosophical, oh, you go into a mental hospital, or the old Hollywood sort of kind of Hollywood-esque, you go into a mental hospital and then you just start freaking out about something and then they inject you and then you're in the straitjacket too. It's like this very sort of sober, everyone needs to be calm and collected, otherwise they're insane, kind of rationale, which is just like, well, if you have to be cool and collected, otherwise everyone's insane. Everyone is insane then, including you. Cool and collected people, because you have some sort of emotions riding under the surface too. You're just, controlling it, condensing it, holding it together. Also, a generalization. But, I'd say it applies to most. Yeah, I mean, you can dispute that, and you may very well be right. But my opinion, at the very least, is that it applies to most of these people who say they're rational and calm and collected on these things. But getting back to the subject, generalizations on these things. They're like, oh, conservatives are all this way on the subject. Well, no, you've got pastors who are very, you've got multiple pastors and priests and people like that. You've got mothers and all these other people who are in these groups. You've got people who are grew up in different economic situations. You've got rich conservatives. You've got poor white trash conservatives. You've got all sorts of people and all sorts of ways that each of these different types of conservative could kind of view these things in this different one. You could easily go cite a pastor who says, I do not like it when people aren't politically correct. They need to be respectful, When people aren't politically correct and they're offensive, that's not okay. And then you could go to a troll on the other hand who's saying things like, oh, those liberal snowflakes, ha ha, faggots, ha 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 ha, oh, get a rise out of you, get a rise out of you, get a rise out of you, and then I feel like this is what these people, generalizations again, so easy to do. But this is what some of these liberal folks and some of these conservative folks who are trying to sort of, condense this information, clear it up, sort of, give a broader perspective on sort of the social atmosphere of society or of the other side. This is what some of these people do, is they just go, okay, so the priest here, they don't even say the priest. Maybe at some point in time they pointed out the priest. But they're like, okay, so I saw a conservative who said this. So conservatives, therefore, believe in politically correct culture. But, look at this crazy one over here. All these conservatives are just hypocrites. And sometimes they're very careful at avoiding the all, but they're still just saying conservatives are hypocrites. It's like, well, if you're not going specific with the individual, then it doesn't work. It doesn't work, because there are like 65 million conservatives who vote, and 65 million liberals who vote. Never mind all the independents, never mind all the people who don't vote, never mind all the differences in ideology and belief along the spectrum. And the same thing goes with the liberal side, where it's just like, oh, well, we absolutely want to be politically correct all the time. No, so the conservatives. So you get a conservative who's just like, well, those liberals are always about being politically correct all the time because they have this sort of line of thinking about these, oh, jeez. I might have to take a cut off of this thing. Well, I don't even need to say that, but I'm running out of battery. Alright. So these conservatives will often go along this sort of line and perspective where they're just like, well, these liberals always want to be politically correct all the time because they're, they don't want all these insults towards the different groups of diversity, so they're trying to control the narrative. And then they'll go to some very, more libertarian liberal, or a more, freedom liberal, or more, less about respectful liberal, very trollish liberal, because they exist. And they'll be like, oh, look, this crazy motherfucker is what a hypocrite. He's saying all this crap about conservatives that's super offensive, or, oh my god, Sam B just called her a cunt! Ah! It's like, have you ever looked at Sam B? If you're really going on specifics, find me a time that Sam B has said, oh, we should be politically correct in our comedy. No, this is a trigger-happy comedian who says stuff that's really questionable and out there the entire time. Go to her show. Go watch 2 seconds of her show. Even watch previews for her show. That's all I've watched. Watch previews for her show, and you realize how hot button these topics that she brings up are, and how controversial these things are that she says in her comedy. But that's her act. My God, that's her act. But then they just go, oh well. Oh, Sam B this, Sam B that. It's like, Sam B is just trying to Sam B is doing that all the time. Find me the example of Sam B saying, we need to be politically correct and not offensive. This is a bad Sam B impression. No, that's more my politically correct liberal impression. No, the Sam B... No, I don't watch her enough to give an impression of her. But find me that Sam B moment where she's like, we absolutely need to be very respectful of everyone.